All right, today we are going to continue through chapter 4, which is extraordinarily long. But I want to start with something else first. The ones of you who are in my previous class, I apologize to you in advance. You get a little review. We're going to do it a little more briefly in this class, but it's important in this one as well because you're going to be writing some, coming up with a cumulative plan for your patients from these hypothetical case studies that I got from you guys. I'm not going to give those back out until Tuesday because a couple people are out that are out basically every Thursday because of class conflict. So I'm having to work with them a lot. It's easier to just have it on a day where everybody's here or supposed to be here. So we're going to go with that route. But let me share my screen real quick. We're going to run through this quicker this time than we did last time. But this is important. We talked about it in 372. We're going to talk about it in this one as well because you really, did I say really, need to know how to write proper objectives and goals when it comes to recreation therapy. I just added this onto the Blackboard page for this course, just on a whim just a second ago. Let me move this out of the way enough to make it happen. And just for the video, hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to step away well enough where I can, no, I'll use it here. Okay. We know the difference between goals and objectives, right? Goals are what? Big picture. That's the main thing you want to see. Like Tia will improve her cardiovascular endurance. Isabella will improve her social skills. You're like, really? Your social skills are fine, no worries. We are going to, they're going to be very broad. They're going to be non-specific, really, in nature. They're telling you something big that you're going to work on. Each one of these large-scale goals is going to be accompanied by several objectives. There's not a given number that you must have. I'd say every goal is going to have at least 2 or 3 objectives beneath it to help their stair steps to see whether or not you are reaching your goal, okay? And the key here, writing a goal is pretty simple. You can look at your patient, you can see what they have going on, and you say, all right, she has trouble with communicating her needs. Kelly will improve the ability to communicate her needs in an appropriate manner. That would be a good goal. Okay, those things are going to stick out, and they're going to be broad, and they're going to be relatively all-encompassing in a lot of ways. But from there, how are we going to get her to improve that? How are we going to improve Isabella's social skills? How are we going to improve your cardiovascular endurance? And that is through objectives, okay? They're the small steps that you take to get to to the finish line of reaching the goals. So each objective, and honestly, people have a little more trouble with this as a general rule than I expect them to. It's not incredibly hard. You just have to think your way through it, okay? So right here, these are some objectives, and we're going to talk today about Carrie, Matt, Mary, and Nathan. And we'll do this as quickly as we can run through it and still get the information to you because some of you just got this, and I apologize, but I wanted to share it with this class too. And it doesn't hurt for you to hear it again, I promise. So every objective has 3 things, and you need to make a note of these. You need to put stars by them. You need to memorize these 3 things that they are going to be part of objectives, okay? Every objective is going to have a condition, a behavior, and a criteria. So we'll talk about Carrie right here. And I'm going to go ahead and just tell you what would be, for this first one, a good goal for Carrie based on what I'm seeing here. Carrie will become more independent in her self-help skills. Okay? So one way that we can work on this, and this is not so much what you would think of as a recreation therapy activity per se, but we do work on a team and we do work with other disciplines to help our patients as best we can, regardless of what we're doing. So here's an objective that would go along with her becoming more independent on self-care, okay? The condition: when prompted by staff to bring her basket of dirty laundry to the washroom. That is when. When does it start? What kicks it off? That's the condition. When prompted to bring her basket. So the behavior is what she's actually going to do. What is she going to do? She's going to wash her clothes in the washing machine following the steps of the task analysis. So basically you break that down with her and tell her this is what we must do. We have to bring the laundry in here. You're going to put your soap in right here. And you're going to put in 75 cents, close it, and press start. So you've gone through the analysis and the instructions of her to be able to do that, okay? So far, we know when it's going to start, when she's been prompted. The behavior is going to be washing her clothes using proper steps. And the criteria, this criteria equals how well you do it. Criteria, she's going to do it 8 out of 10 steps of the task analysis. So you're going to break down washing her clothes into 10 steps. She needs to get at least 8 out of 10 of those correct, 1 time a week for a month. And the important thing about this is that this is trackable. Criteria is what makes it trackable and where you can say whether or not she was effective, whether you made it too easy, whether you made it too difficult, whether it needs to be tweaked. That's where you're going to see that, is because you're basing it off of the criteria. That tells you they did it a certain percentage of the time they were effective. 8 out of 10, it's going to be numbers, it's going to be measurable, okay? So the next one, we're going to talk about Matt. What's the condition? Break it down into a shorter version. Somebody tell me when it's going to start. Yep, when verbally presented by staff to choose between 2 activities, which are going to be in the community, movie, shopping, etc. So when he is verbally asked by the staff, that's a condition. That ticks it off. That gets it moving. His behavior that you're going to be looking at is going to be to verbally select 1 activity and begin within 15 minutes of arriving to the location. The criteria, this is what's measurable to say whether or not it was effective or not. He needs to try the activity for at least 30 minutes with less than 2 prompts from staff. If they have to prompt him more than twice, does he get his check mark for success for that objective that day? Nope, it does not fit the objective that you've got here. We'll skip past a goal on that. We'll do it on the next one. The next one here, this would be an example of like clients that I worked with when I was at the NMRC who had developmental disabilities and therefore had some behavior problems. Mary, the condition, somebody tell me the condition. Basically, just take the parentheses out because that doesn't matter. Yep, when she's in the community and it starts to get crowded and noisy. Obviously, that sets off anxiety for her. There's your condition, when there's a noisy, crowded place. What behavior? We're looking to improve and make appropriate behavior here. So she's going to find somewhere quiet. She's going to ask for a quiet place to take a break instead of yelling or hitting staff or others. Okay, that's the behavior. And the criteria, she has to do this 4 out of 5 visits in the community for 2 months, because you can expect that for her it's going to get crowded and it's going to get loud, because this is something that happens relatively frequently with Mary. She gets stressed out in crowds and public places, clearly. So what would be a goal that would go along with that objective? Mary will find, or Mary will work on self-control, will improve her impulses, will find more appropriate ways to deal with stress, something like that. Something, you're not saying what exactly is going to be more appropriate. We'll find appropriate ways to deal with stress related to crowds, or to deal with her stress. That's enough for a goal. Short, sweet, broad. Good enough. That's all. I just wanted to go through this stuff with y'all. It's on the Blackboard page now. When we get to, once I get these hand out the hypothetical case studies next week, we're going to talk about exactly what I want you to do with them. Not going to quite be to this point yet, but you're going to get there, where you're going to be giving me goals and objectives before this semester's over, okay? It all works together. You're going to build it throughout the semester, and at the end, you're just going to put it in a nice little folder and put a ribbon on it, and it's going to be, you're going to build it along the way. So it's not going to be as bad as it looks like on the syllabus. So let me stop sharing this, and we'll go to the chapter 4 and talk for a little bit there. So this is just the last slide that we went over. I always kind of double back to the last slide from the class before, because the last slide, people are usually putting all their stuff in their backpack and looking at their watch and sending a text saying that, hey, I'll be out to the car in a minute. So just go back. Know the difference between validity and reliability. That's important not just for this class, but for any class that you're going to take. When you are doing things, that you need to have validity and reliability. Validity says whether or not the instrument assesses what it's supposed to assess. Is it actually valid as far as what it is measuring? That's all that is. Reliability answers the question of whether the instrument is going to produce consistent results, reproducible results. If I give this survey to a group, or this assessment to someone, and they get a score of 11.4, and I follow the directions and do it by the book. If you give the same assessment, you follow the directions and you go by the book. If it is a reliable assessment tool, they should get an 11.4 or very darn close to it. That's what reliability is all about. All right, let's go to the slideshow now. Because who doesn't love a good slideshow? Okay. So when we meet our patients, we're talking about assessments in this class. That's to do assessments and understand assessments in recreation therapy, you have to understand the full process. And that's what this chapter 4 is about, and that is why it is so darn long. It is a long, big chapter, and that's okay. And we're not wasting our time going over this stuff. There's some of you that are going to be taking the CTRS exam one day. Whether you know it right now or not, you will. And this is an important chapter to take some things with you. So don't zone out on me on this stuff, even though it's long. So when we meet our patients, and we're talking about doing assessing up front, We can see when they walk in the door, we can tell some things about them. When we talk to them, we can tell certain other things about them. We want to gain information from the client and observe the client. So not only are we just talking to them and you know, writing down every little thing they say, we want to see whether they look comfortable. We want to see if their eyes are shifty, if they're nervous, if they're, you know, body language is how much of communication? I don't know the answer to that. Somebody make up a number and tell me. It's supposed to be like more than the actual words you speak. I know that your body language says more than your actual verbal output. So watching the people that we're talking to can tell you a ton, you know, whether they're with you, whether or not they're forming a relationship with you, or whether they don't want to be there. And if that's the case, you may have to double back and do another, because they're not going to give you good information if they're closed off and you can tell it. Okay. Well, so in order to get good information from your patients or clients when you're talking with them, you need to develop a relationship with the client and gain rapport with them, which is basically just like you're building a relationship. They feel comfortable with you. You feel comfortable with them. Now, that being said, I'm getting off topic a little bit. Everybody's going to have their favorites. No way around it. And when you build that rapport, you're going to have some that you want to just do more things with than others. You can't do that. You have to also never blur the line as a recreation therapist between therapist and friend. Understand what I'm saying here, and that is difficult to do. I see it in my daily life with my kids. I want to be their buddy. I want to get down on the floor and play with them. And we're throwing each other around and they're kicking me in the face. And then something happens and I need to be serious. And I say, all right, stop, put that up. And they're just like, ha, ha, ha. Okay, they don't listen because I've left that dad mode and gone into like friend mode. You see kind of what the purpose, I mean, I'm not saying you have to keep them at an arm's length. They just need to understand that, hey, as much as I like you, I'm your therapist. I am here to help you get the most you can out of what we're doing. And that's what I mean by not letting that line blur, if you understand what I'm saying on that. So you want to build rapport with your patient. You also want to provide the client with an orientation to the recreation therapy program. That will help build the rapport as well. Have a new patient come in, a great thing to do would be to take them around your recreation therapy department, your facilities, introduce them to some of the other staff, show them the things that are going to be available. I mean, if you have a rock climbing wall, you want to show them you have a rock climbing wall. If you have a pool, you want to show them you have a pool. This is our gym. This is our movie theater in here. You think they're going to get a little more pumped about recreation therapy if you provide them with an orientation to what you have available? And then you say, these are the things that we like to do. You know, these are the things that we do a lot of. We've got a hippotherapy program. We go out and do therapeutic riding once a week. We go for hikes. I love to take people fishing that like to fish. You give them all of this stuff. And then you tell them kind of a schedule. Also, when you're talking about an orientation to the program, you know, you're going to be with me on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from 2 to 4 every week. So we're going to work on these things that we decide to be goals that we can help you with. And so they know what to expect. They know what's there. They've met some people. They become more comfortable with you. They become more comfortable with the program in general. That's kind of the key to that whole deal. When we're getting to know our patients, when we're getting to know our clients, we have to, sometimes we don't get all the information strictly from the client. Again, Saw that a ton at NMRC when I was there because a lot of my clients were nonverbal and couldn't speak. So you find information that you can't get from an interview, from maybe an assessment that they fill out, from observation. You can get some more information from things like medical records in health care settings. Most places, patients, when they come in, they're going to have a file. And in that file will not just be recreation therapy, there will be notes from every department that's going to be working with them in there. So you can find information that you need there. Educational records, if you're in an educational setting, you know, sometimes recreation therapists work in schools and things. You can find educational records, and that can give you an idea of their level, you know, their cognitive ability as far as how much, you know, how much am I going to have to explain this stuff to break it down into an easier way to understand. When you see what level they're on, that's going to tell you a lot. Test results from psychologists and other therapies. It may be not just from psychologists where you're looking at the mental side of things. You may find some test results from the physical therapists who show that they have severely limited mobility in their right arm. Is that good for us to know as recreation therapists? Where you can plan accordingly? That's something we can work on. A good goal right off of that. Improve mobility in the patient's right upper quadrant. You know, improve strength in the right arm. That would give you some goals. Boom, 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 right off the bat. And you see how easy it is to hit goals when you see things like that. And that's coming straight from looking at another person's information. Another very, very helpful one is next, and it's interviews with family and friends. NMRC, again, it's word vomit. You know, you've had my classes. I worked there for 20 years. See me, I'm sorry. They couldn't speak for themselves. Their family and friends were there for meetings, and they spoke for them. And they told us things that we would have never known had they not been there. So very, very important secondary source of information right there. Social histories, social workers will also be in their charts, and they're going to write up things that are going to tell you information about, you know, their home life and maybe some of the reasons that they're even there. You know, some background that can tell you a lot about why that person is the way that they are. Gives us a lot of insight on whether or not they're going to buy into what we're telling them, or if they're going to be resistant because they've had failed attempts to get better before, you know, things like that. You can find that a lot of times in things that you'll see from social workers. Progress notes, information shared by members of the interdisciplinary team. So who all's on the interdisciplinary team? Just start spitting some out. Physical therapist. Psychologist. Doctors. Social workers. Nurses. OT. Speech therapy. I mean, depending on where you are, there's the interdisciplinary team is going to, I mean, they may have a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, nursing. I mean, lots of people. And the cool thing is that everybody is working for the betterment of that patient, not just you. You know, you're all, now sometimes it can, and I've been there, sometimes it can lead to some heated discussions around that table when you have an idea that you really think is going to be great for that client. And you say, well, hey, this is what I want to do in recreation therapy. I want to take them and do this activity 3 days a week. And somebody says, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I mean, from what I've seen, they're not going to, what's that going to do to me? It's going to make me mad. So you kind of need to know your stuff and be able to go back at them with justification of why you've made the decisions you've made. And for the most part, people are able to get along. And I'll say this too, you have a team leader at these meetings that is kind of like the person with the gavel that can say, hey, order in the court. You know, calm down. We're here to help Isabella. You know, we're on the same team. Chill. Let's come back to this. And I've seen that happen, and it has to happen sometimes. That being said, interdisciplinary team is a very, very positive situation, but sometimes I'm just kind of giving you a little warning. It can run into a little bit of conflict when you have people from different backgrounds and educations that have different thoughts about what's going to help your patients. Then obviously you can butt heads a little bit. One that I've never really done much, visits to the client's home and community. Sometimes, you know, there's therapy that is done in the homes, and there's you know, outpatient treatment where they come in for like day hab or respite services where the family of a person who may have developmental disabilities, they can go to work. They take their individual that they would normally be having to keep to a day hab setting. They work with them during the day and then they come pick them up. Or sometimes you may work at a facility where you have like a van or a bus and you pick up and drop off the patients. When you pick them up and you may see their home and community, and you may learn a lot about them from that. And I'm not saying to be judgy, but I mean, you can tell sometimes about what somebody has dealt with on a daily basis by just looking at, say, which side of the tracks they live on, for lack of a better way to put it. And I'm not trying to be mean to anybody or whatever. That's just, you can tell by, that's about the closest I've been to visiting a client's home and community, would be picking them up or taking them home from like a Special Olympic event. And yes, you can tell a little bit about them from doing that. So when you're going to do assessment, these are just some guidelines that are listed here. You want to seek as much input as possible from the individual. Okay, those of you who were in my last class especially, why? Why do we want as much input from them as we can? Yeah, that's one. Absolutely, you just nailed it. It's what I was looking for. They are, if they sit down with you and they give you tons of input, you're building rapport, they're giving you that framework, they're going to be more invested in what you're doing if they feel like you're really listening to them and taking down what they're giving you and putting it into account as you plan activities, goals, objectives to help them moving forward. So you assess the physical and human environment as well as the individual skills and needs. So we're not just looking at exactly what they need and exactly what they can do. We also want to see what is their daily life like. You know, that's where we're talking about seeing their home and things like that. That's the type of thing we might find in the social work folder, you know, that tells us that they come from an abusive background or something like that. You know, that would be something that we need to know. We assess those physical and human environments as well. Remain focused on the individual's long-term goals. I talked about this a little bit in the last class. We want them to have as much input as possible with their long-term goals. We want to talk to them. We want to see what they want to get out of recreation therapy and out of being here with us. What do you want to, when you leave here, what do you want to see? You know, you want to ask them that. And ideally, they're going to tell you something that would be an excellent goal for you to just use and say, hey, you just wrote your own goal. How about that? If not, like I say, you may have to finesse them a little bit from the things that they've told you and say, okay, how do you feel about working on this based on what you have found and what you've seen through assessment? Then they're agreeing to it. You've talked through it. They're going to believe in what you're doing. It's important to do that. You want to assess their strengths, abilities, and desires, as well as their deficits and needs, because you need to know all of those if you're going to have an IPP that's going to be effective, individualized program plan. You need to know on there, you will have listed their strengths, and you will have listed their abilities, the things that they're good at, some things that they want to do. You're also going to have listed on there their needs and maybe deficits. Our goals may not always be directly always fitting with this deficits and needs. Sometimes we can have goals to continue or enhance the strengths, abilities, and desires that they have. It doesn't always have to, we try to use strength-based programming as much as possible. And so, yes, we need to address deficits and needs, but when we can work with strengths, that's going to make their mental side of the game so much better that you'll see a lot of benefits across the board because of that. So we talked a little bit about, last time we talked about this holistic assessment, and it's a big word, and it just means all encompassing, really. You want to have the full picture in your assessment about your clients. Their general perceptions about their present health status, what kind of health do they feel like they are right now? Do you feel like you're in good shape? Things like how they're dealing with their health problems or concerns, how their health problems or concerns may be affecting regular recreation and leisure patterns, because that's what we do. We want to tie in these health problems and concerns that they tell us about with, hey, what is this doing to your recreation time and your leisure time? Is this stopping you from being able to participate in something that you want to participate in? And then these things that I got from you, these hypothetical case studies, almost every one of them has something that is stopping the client or patient from being able to participate in something as fully as they want to because they have a health problem or concern, or even a mental problem or concern that makes them scared to do it. My dad had total knee replacement. He was scared to go fishing because he didn't want to slip. All up here. He needed to get past that. Once that is done, if they can wake you up, like a total knee replacement, just on a side note, if they could wake you up enough, you could get up off the operating table and walk out of the room. It's that functional after they put in a total knee replacement. So he could squat as long as he could take it. He's not going to hurt that, but he needed help mentally with getting back in the game. So sometimes we have to see that it's not just physical issues that are holding somebody back. Sometimes it's the mental side that's playing a big role with them. As far as their recreation and leisure patterns, we want to look for sensory or motor impairments. How's their hearing? How's their vision? Things like that. Cognitive deficits, obviously. If we see that someone has some cognitive deficits, we're going to have to give them a little more in-depth instructions, or maybe more than once, or maybe 10 times, and that's okay. We just need to know where they may have cognitive deficits. What sort of limitations and activities of daily living? So we're looking at things like, if we take them on a trip as a recreation therapist, can they go to the bathroom by themselves, or do we need to have a staff go in there with them? Can they go fix their own plate at a buffet line? Or will they put 800 chicken legs on there if we don't have someone right there with them? That sort of things is real. You know, we need to know those sort of things like activities of daily living. If we take them on an overnight trip, can they bathe themselves? Are they going to brush their own teeth? We need to know that kind of stuff. Obviously, we need to know about any precautions also, like heart problems, diabetes is another one that sticks out to me. And you can find a lot of this in like nursing notes, doctor notes, a lot of even pharmacy notes. A lot of patients are on medications that make them extremely sensitive to the sun and gets them overheated quickly. Especially, you know, the ones that we have, the patients we had who had a lot of seizure activity, a lot of them had medications that they were on that made them sensitive to the sun. So that would tell me two things. Number one, I see right there that they have seizure activity. A lot of times seizure activity is pronounced and brought on by really pushing somebody, you know. Therefore, a 90-degree day, you probably don't want to go for a mountain hike with Tom, who has a good deal of seizure activity. Not only does he have that situation, but he's on medication that makes him sensitive to the sun and the heat. So you're setting him up for failure and yourself up to be in trouble, basically. So those are the kind of things that we have to know and watch for. We want to know their leisure values. How much do they actually value their leisure time? When they don't have other obligations, that is your leisure time. What do they like to do during that time? How much do they value it? What sort of things would they like to get into that they're not currently into? What would you like to start doing? If you had anything that you like a new sport that you could try to play, what would it be? You know, and they might say, I've never been water skiing. I'd love to go water skiing. And you know what? You can take people water skiing that are non-ambulatory and in wheelchairs. There are ways to do things. They might want to go snow skiing, the same individual. It can be done. Now, you got to have resources. You got to have backing. You got to have the means to make it happen. But I'm just saying, you want to find out, you know, what their interests are. And if there's any way you can make that, like make a dream come true for one of these people, realize how good that's going to make you feel and them. It's worth it. It's worth the effort, I can tell you. You also want to find out the client's attitudes toward participation in recreation therapy programs. Are they fired up about coming to see you, or are they just kind of like I talked about, especially early on in the, you know, drug and alcohol rehabilitation settings, they are not super pumped to see you and do activities with you. You have to be a master motivator to get them going. And the place where I went in and did consultation, they had a master motivator. And she was a loud, little, short, round woman that had the voice of a giant. But it was friendly, but just loud. And she would come in their room and she would say, "You get your butt up and come out here with me. We're going to have fun today." And they would just look at her like, "Yes, ma'am." Before you know it, she had a room full, you know. And she'd get in there and get them active and get them to where they have fun. And then the next time, she didn't have to drag them out of the room. Just And that's something that I promise you, she did not come into the field with that necessarily. She may have had that voice and she may have been a little pushy, but I guarantee you she had to work her way into that confidence that she used to draw those patients out of their room when she knew full well that they had no intentions of wanting to come with her. That's something she had to fake it till she made it for a little while. And sometimes you got to do that. So some other areas that are included in this holistic, all-encompassing assessment: the developmental level of the client is appraised to determine developmental tasks or issues with which they may be dealing. That lays right back into NMRC. Like I'm talking about, a lot of times their chronological age and their developmental age may not be equivalent at all. So we need to see where someone is on their skill level and where they need the help the most. Problems or concerns are explored to reveal needs, like if they feel like they need to belong, if you see that they have low self-esteem, you may want to get them involved in some group activities that are going to boost morale. And especially when you see someone who has low self-esteem, and you're going to come across that. You know, I've talked about challenging our clients and patients and how we need to challenge them appropriately. That it's hard to find that balance between challenging enough and making it too easy. You want them to be successful. If you've got someone who has, low self-esteem, you don't want them coming into your class and failing and leaving feeling worse than they got there. Sorry, if you made it a little too easy, oh well, you did good. Let them win one time, and then step it up a little bit. Say, hey, you did it last time. We're gonna make it a little harder today. I'm not giving you specific examples of activities because that's not important. The point is that we can step up what we're doing to make it challenging yet attainable. That's key. Strengths such as their abilities that they have, their virtues or their beliefs, their support from family and friends are identified to build a strengths list. And some of your patients are going to have that, especially that support from family and friends, and some of them will not. I've seen patients dropped off at centers and the director of the facility becomes their legal guardian because they were basically dropped. Their family said, "Done with you." Not cool, but it happens. That's something you need to know. You need to know that they're not going to be, when everybody else is getting picked up to go home for Thanksgiving dinner, they're not going to have that. What do we need to do for them? Something special, because that's going to be crushing to them. So we need to know those sort of things. Then also, when we are doing this assessment, which is holistic in nature, we want to identify our clients' expectations and goals. We've talked about that a little bit already. Your clients' expectations and goals may or may not be aligned exactly with what we plan for them as a recreation therapist. In a perfect world, they would be very close. Because if we can go along with some of the goals and expectations that they are already wanting, they're going to be all in. If what we need to work on, like we need to work on things that they're not already great at, okay? I could go in the gym right now and I can have a basketball and I can shoot layups with my right hand and I'll never miss one. Well, eventually I'd probably miss one. If I try it with my left hand, I'll probably hit the bottom of the rim and hit myself in the head with the ball because I can't even brush my teeth with my left hand. I'm telling you, it is worthless. It's just this little appendage that does nothing. That being said, Which one would our patients enjoy doing more? They're going to want to go in there and use this right hand where they're successful. They're just making shot, 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 shot. Is it doing them any good? Nope. It may be making them feel good, but it's not even really making them feel that good because it's too easy. That's why you got to focus on this, the things where they actually need. And that's why we cannot go 100% with the client's expectations and goals, because they're going to want to do things that they know they're going to be successful in and that they know they can do already. And what good does that do? See my point? Okay, a strength-oriented assessment. We're going to stop within about 10 minutes. I'll tell you that. That is exploring what's strong to supplement traditional digging for what's wrong. Kind of wordy, but it makes sense. Might have to read it more than once. Exploring what's strong to supplement traditional digging for what's wrong. That's why a lot of times we talk about strength-based approach to programming. We need to know their strong points. We also need to know their weak points. We need to know the strong points to help us improve the weak points in a lot of cases. Client strengths are a lot of times, it may be recreational talents and abilities. Virtues or personality traits, they may be extremely personable. They may be very loyal. Recreational talents, I mean, they might be a great basketball player. They may be able to play the piano by ear. We had a client at the NMRC, doesn't say a word, cannot speak. He can listen to any song on the radio. He can walk over to the piano and sit down and play it like you've never seen from hearing it one time. Crazy, crazy stuff. I would say that was a pretty good talent or ability for that client. We probably don't need to work on playing music by ear with him. Just saying. He might like to do that for fun sometime, but that wouldn't be a good place to put a goal or an objective. What external resources may they have that would be strengths for them? Do they have a good social support system from their family and friends? What sort of recreational talents and abilities might they have? Again, it may be athletic skills. They may be good at creative writing. Now, these are the type of things that you would put in notes, on a daily basis, depending on what sort of activities you're doing and in your assessment. It's strong at creative writing. They have exceptional art skills. Katie has loves her ability to perform on stage in front of everyone. Proficiency in activities, specific ones, say Pilates and yoga. Those are just example of recreational talents. Now, as far as virtues or personality traits, wisdom, strength, curiosity, interest, love of learning, that's something that I see as a very positive. If you have someone that you're working with that has that love of learning, that means they're going to listen to you when you're talking. They're going to try to learn the rules about how they're supposed to act and how they're not, and how to do the activities that you're talking about. Are they intelligent? Are they open-minded? Do they have good critical thinking skills? Are they creative? Courage strengths. We're talking about perseverance. They don't give up easy. They have good integrity. They're honest. They have great enthusiasm. Love strengths. Intimacy, reciprocal attachments, kindness, generosity, nurturance, social intelligence, personal intelligence, and emotional intelligence. Let me see here. Because we went through goals and objective stuff early today. Didn't get quite as far as I wanted to. We're going to finish chapter 4 next class, but we're going to stop here for today. Okay? Nothing really. I've gotten your, if I already have your hypothetical case study, nothing due for them. Again, I'm going to, hang on, y'all hang tight 1 second. We're about to do something. For about 5 minutes. What's the abbreviation for loss of consciousness? LOC, all capital. For example, yep, EG, gastrointestinal, GI. What's ADA stand for? Act, Americans with Disabilities Act. ADL, activities of daily living. That's important. That's the type thing you will see in charts. I promise you, you'll see ADL in there. What is lowercase dx? Diagnosis, good. CNS, central nervous system. All caps, LUE. Left upper extremity. I forgot my candy. You'd be getting pelted right now. I told you I was going to bring it and I forgot it and I got in a hurry. You'd have a black eye by now after about 4 of them. Capital, all caps, NOS. Not otherwise specified. Somebody else, all caps, NPO. Nothing by mouth, very good. ICU, everybody ought to get this one. Thank you. Okay, lowercase, BID. Twice daily, who said that? Good. BM. Good job. See y'all later. Y'all have a good weekend. You always got to end with a good bowel movement, okay? Hey, when y'all are sitting around, be looking over these things because you're gonna get a quiz show up before too long, okay? Basically, be ready to do chapter 4 when you show up next time. We're gonna try to finish that thing if we can.